Thank you all for joining us today. I really appreciate it. We have about 40 people here, so I will, I will go ahead and let you know that we have a combination of returning grantees and applicants, as well as some new organizations or new individuals with organizations new to our process that from past cycles. So I try to do, as many of you know who have been through the information session before, I try to find a balancing point in this, where I try to cover as much must know how to information, as well as information about our cycle and our approach to the cycle as possible, while not sort of totally droning on and putting all of the returning applicants and grantees who've been through this process to sleep. Let's get started really throughout. If you have a question, you may ask it in one of three ways. You can either use the chat. I do have the chat box up, and you'll have to excuse me. You're going to see me going back and forth. For those that haven't done this with me, I run two screens, and so I put everything I have to monitor on one and the PowerPoint on the other. If you need help, please by all means send me or have a question, send it in the chat box. You're also welcome to raise your hand. Just remember, it takes me a minute to find you on the screen. Or you can unmute yourself and start frantically waving at me like this and use every emoji you can ever think of. And I'm happy to stop because I will take questions throughout. You do not have to wait till the end, particularly those that are new. There are a couple of people who have seen me do this before in person and on Zoom, and you know that I really miss being in person because we have a lot of fun and I usually get the room laughing at me, which is the whole goal. So it's a little harder to do on Zoom. So, all right. So I'm also going to sort of probably jump through some slides. Don't panic. You will get the slides. Everybody who attended will also get the link to the video recording once we get it loaded. So maybe someone else in your organization is going to be helping you with the application, or actually doing it for you, and you can pass it on to them if you think there's something important that they need to know. So we are going to jump right in. Okay, there we go. All right. Oh, and one last thing, just as an FYI, we are recording this. We recorded Tuesdays, and most of the time I just use one or the other, but I may have to cobble them together in case somebody asks really great questions that that I want to make sure everybody gets. So just so you know, that will be available for everyone. So really quickly, the process timeline, if you haven't seen it on our website, next week, the 17th, fingers crossed, the application will be available on our website. Everybody who's been to an information session, as well as everybody on our general e-announcement list, will get an email saying the application is live. I am going to say, please do me a favor, and you're more than welcome to start checking if you're one of those go-to people, get it done, get it out of the way the very first day. But if you don't see the application links at 9 o'clock in the morning, just bear with us and keep waiting for that announcement to come out, because we could have run into technological difficulties. I could be having problems getting the whole thing to launch. Who knows? So fingers crossed, technology is our friend and will behave on the 17th. So we'll see what happens. Applications are due by 4 p.m. on September 23rd. At that point in time, we will be monitoring the email box where they're going to be coming in, and anything that comes in after that point, we will not be able to review. I have to stress this, one, I will encourage you, please don't wait until September 23rd to write your application. Because I promise you'll probably run into a technology glitch, because that has happened numerous times. But if you are still working on it on the 23rd and there are problems with the website, or your internet goes down, or something else crazy happens, particularly for those that don't know me and haven't been through the cycle with us before, please reach out to us. Send me an email, give me a quick call. There are many people on this screen right now that will probably be like this or give me a big thumbs up. We try to be as helpful as possible. We try to make this as painless as possible. So please make sure you reach out. Our committees will review the applications in October and meet in early November. So whoever's the contact person on the application could potentially receive an email from us with some follow-up questions. I cannot stress this enough. Whoever is the contact for follow-up questions, whoever's listed on the application as contact really needs to know that they need to sort of be the type of person that monitors their email box and their junk mail in case I get thrown into the junk mail folder. I will tell you in the past, periodically, we have had organizations the person has designated themselves as the contact person. They know that between October something and October something, we might be asking questions with very little turnaround to get the responses in for the report, and they go on vacation for the whole time period. So we won't, so please, whoever's going to do that, have them let me know if someone else is going to be doing it. Very rarely do we have lots of follow-up questions, but if I get an out of office and I don't know who else to go to, it can slow down either getting the report to follow up on your application or even being able to ask the question. So I do ask that whoever that designated person is monitors that. The board of directors will review the recommendations on December 14th, and we will notify everyone, regardless of the status of your application, the week of December 27th. For those that have not been through this with us, I will stress, and for those that have, this is still a competitive cycle. There are still a lot of asks and needs in the community and a finite amount of money to award. While we strive to support as many applications as we can, we do not guarantee funding, nor are we able to say that we necessarily can fund all applications received. Grant agreement letters are mailed in January, and funding is distributed depending on when the organization requests it, anywhere from March to June. So this year's cycle, no major changes. We're not, unlike last year where we made a few major changes. The biggest thing this year for us is that we are going to continue the 3-year on, 1-year off requirement as being temporarily set aside. For those that may not know what that is, we in the past have had a policy where we require organizations receiving 3 competitive awards to take their 4th year off from the whole cycle. We tabled that last year due to the pandemic and the needs in our community, and we have determined that we will do that again this year as we continue to try to move forward, adapt to what new normal is going to look like. We still struggle in many respects with ongoing ramifications of the pandemic. So we will be tabling that, and we welcome applications regardless of your previous grant status, the number of grant years that you've done. We are hosting these 2 last week and this week's virtual information session, and we are recording it. And other than that, we will not be hosting anymore unless something significant changes that we need to notify the community about with regard to our cycle. At this point, fingers crossed, I don't see that as a necessity. Last year, we trimmed our application down to 2 main questions. That's just, there are lots of sort of demographic check the box questions for those that haven't completed it before, but there are 2 main narrative questions. The first one is, what is your proposal or purpose? What are you requesting, and what will it do? And the second is the sustainability and assessing impact piece. So going forward, what's going on? How will you assess the impact of our funding in your ability to continue your work? We were going to continue. Last year we added a final question to the application that had nothing to do with funding, had no ramifications on the status of your application. We're always looking for information and feedback. We're always interested to know what's going on, what you see on boots on the ground, front line. You're in communication all the time with our community, so we're always interested in how to better understand what we can do from a non-award basis based position? What are the resources? What are the information sessions? What are potentially training or other access to non-funding based resources that you may need? So we are going to keep that. We got some really great feedback last year. We're continuing to develop some ideas based on that. And so we will also, it's a good way for us to check in and see how everyone is doing as we continue to move forward in the pandemic. Excuse me. Just as last year, we are taking the approach that we know everyone is attempting to adapt for maybe some type of new normal, right? What's keeping everyone sustainable as we go forward? No one's really sure exactly what it's going to fully look like as we come out, how much we're going to go back to maybe the way we were, maybe go forward in a whole new direction, thinking outside the box. I was talking with someone today that it's all about thinking outside the box, right? So those are the two core questions we ask, are really looking at what are you doing now and what do you need to keep doing it going forward? What is it that you're trying to accomplish? What is it? How can we support you? What is it the community needs from you? This is really when we've always supported operations, been a big believer in funding operations. Operations is the cornerstone of everything you do. For every program you offer, it's operations work, right? You need people to get it done. But this is really encouraging our nonprofits to take a much stronger sort of switch and think about that perspective of, instead of necessarily choosing the single project or the single program, think in a broader view of your work, what you need to do to get it done and how it's impacting the community and what our support can do to help you get there. Now, that's not to say if you need to apply for funding for a single program or a single project approach, that's fine. There's no reason you cannot take that approach in the application. But it really is up to each applicant to determine what your needs are and how you can best express what those needs may be in the narrative sections for our committees to review. So on this, you'll see on this, we continue across the board. All of the focus areas that we have supported: arts, education, culture, environment, animals, women and girls, at-risk boys. We are also really encouraging those organizations that may be working with seniors and veterans. It's very important for us to know what work you're doing, what your needs are. We do have some field of interest funds that are specifically directed at that population and the needs that population may have. So if that's the type of work that you're doing and you're struggling or have had some obstacles in being able to support it, we're very interested in what you're facing. While we cannot, once again, guarantee funding for any one group or another, that is a focus area or field of interest area that we have had several donors look to continuing to make sure that there are funding to support programs whenever possible. Obviously, basic needs, we know that it's there, but basic needs we broaden because the digital divide is a basic need. The ability to offer alternative programming models based on, whether it's masked or outside or a hybrid model. These are all basic needs for both the nonprofits and our communities. We still have a maximum cap of a $5,000 grant award request. So you may request anywhere between about 500. I mean, you can go less than 500, but most of the time 500 is the smallest grant award I think that we've ever, or grant request we've ever seen in the application cycle, and up to 5,000. Reminder, particularly for those that may be new to our cycle, either individually or as an organization. Our funding is for the calendar year of 2022. That's very important, okay? Funding awarded cannot be used to pay for expenses that are incurred in the calendar year 2021. I really need to stress that for those that may not be familiar with how we do our funding. The funding request should include, the narrative section really should talk about how it supports the organization and your work in the community. For those that aren't familiar with the application form, when there is a chance to tell us the general need, which could be supporting the overall mission, program, services, supporting the organization in general. It could be a technology or an equipment need that you have. It could be for capacity building and or organization improvement. It could specifically be to develop and implement either an ongoing program or a new program or project. And it could be for technical training assistance. There's also another category. I'm sure there's probably a category I didn't think about, but that just helps us sort of get a sense of where the needs are during our funding cycle. There's also a question on there that we will continue to ask with regard to whether our nonprofits have received or planned or expect to receive SBA, EIDL, PPP loans, and, or I should say, upcoming, if you have an expectation or a hope that you may receive distributions from ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act. Now we know that a lot of that is up in the air, particularly with ARPA, because everybody's still working around about what ARPA will do. I really need to stress this as well. It's another point I'm going to stress. This does not impact the status of your application under consideration. This is purely for information purposes. We continually try to find out how well our organizations in our footprint have been able to access the various monies that are available due to the COVID pandemic. Gives us a sense, not only when we talk with others that ask us if we have any idea, have we done really well? Do we continue to struggle? But it also, as things are coming down, if there are ways that we can help get information out. So for example, for all of the arts and culture organizations on the Zoom call today, if you don't connect or have not in the past connected with Connecticut Humanities, it's a great example. We have a call with them. We know that they're handling some of the state and ARPA money for the arts and culture, and that's some very exciting guidelines they're working on with what it can be used for. It's much broader than what they've done in the past. So for instance, we've offered to help get the information out to organizations with them, and also encourage everybody to connect with them that may fall within their larger framework as they partner with the Connecticut State Office of the Arts. So those are reasons why we ask these questions. It helps us better track what we can do to get the information out. So, but I do want to stress it will not impact your application under consideration. I just finished actually updating our website because I realized I had a couple of these were missing. So they will be in the FAQ. They are here in the slides that you will get when we release the recording of the session, as well as updated on our website. Last year, we did a lot of work of evaluating what we are not able to fund under our tax exempt standing, our articles of incorporation, as well as in general sort of what our approach is to grant making. So we made sure that this was updated to represent a variety of things that had come down. So first of all, grants directly to individuals. So that is a single person individual who is applying for grants. We are not able to do that. We do not support initiatives that actually take our grant funds and then put them in a fund and then actually make grants back out to other nonprofits, otherwise known as re-granting. New staff positions or hazard pay expenses that are due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We're also very cautious about staff positions because of the sustainability issues around those, and it's a small grant. So those are things that we don't necessarily consider during this cycle. Recouping lost revenue. I can't stress this enough. This must be for expenses that are expected in 2022, not recouping anything from 2020 or 2021 or even farther back, right? and any payment of debt or legal settlements or any repayment of ongoing loans due to COVID-19 that were beyond those pieces that can be waived. Yes, Leslie, you will receive a copy of, sorry, I just glanced over and saw I've got a question. Receive a copy of the PowerPoint. So anything that's political or partisan based, we cannot support those either. We also do not provide funding for endowments, capital campaigns, or annual fund drives, or event sponsorships. I'm going to pause for just a minute before I get into reminders and then tips on the application to see if there are any other questions. If any I skipped or went by to something too quickly. Okay, so I'm finishing up the FAQ for this year, and it will be on the website along with everything else, as well as an outline in general of the application. I've had a quote request for that, and other information. So make sure you look at all of that, particularly if you're new to the process. Applications must be completed on our website. They cannot be printed out, filled out by hand, and mailed. Okay, please complete the form on the website. That being said, I'm going to stress this again. If you have problems on the website with the forms, please let me know, because technology is not always our favorite person. There are certain things that are required to be uploaded with the application, including the budget summary form that must be our template. That will be available on our website in a Word document that you can download, complete, turn into a PDF, and upload it. So everything that gets uploaded on this application form must be in PDF format. Our website will not allow you to upload anything else to the application other than a PDF. We are not able to use a print preview mode with this application. I have talked to the web designers that manage the framework for me. And in order to do that, we would require everyone to create usernames and passwords and for a once-a-year thing. And so we chose not to do that. You can go back and forth, and you will get a copy of it by email after you submit it. And I'm going to talk about submitting, or the back and forth and the saving or the work on later process here in just a sec, but you will get a copy of it. If you don't, after about 2 days, sometimes it can take a little time to get through, let me know and I'll forward you our copy. Now, for those that have been on the site, you know what this looks like. If you've already started working on your evaluations, you can do the same thing, but I will stress this because I can promise you the next couple of slides are tips, tricks, and things that I get every cycle. Every year, I go through all of this. It tells you all over the website. If you use the save and finish later option, make sure you copy the link that pops up before you click send email, just in case the email takes a really long time to get to, right? So that you always have it. You get a little pop-up box. And in fact, if I do this right, if I'm really, let's see if this will work. I'm going to show you for those, but I will tell you, it's a temporary site. I cannot look at your application until it's submitted. So if you lose the link, I can't help you. I can't get it back for you. I can't get you a new link. I can't reinitiate the send again link. I can't do any of that. So I cannot stress this enough. Please make sure you copy the link. And for those, this is the same thing on the evaluation form, because our evaluation forms are now online, except the interim you still have to request from me, but the final evaluation forms are still online. And if I was smart and I pulled up the right page, I'm actually going to show you what I mean, because we run into this problem every year and I cannot help anyone. So, all right. I can't, so I'm going to share this, and I will, for those that have seen it before, I apologize if you knew it, you're an old hand at it, great, but I promise you I get about 8 of these questions minimum every cycle, and I can't help anybody with this. All right, so I need, here we go, okay. So for those that have outstanding evaluations, I will repeat this when we get later on in the presentation, but I'm going to say it now, just as a reminder, your final evaluation, if you have fully expended the money, is due by September 15th. If you have a grant from the previous year and you will not have fully expended the funding by September 15th, send me an email and I'll send you the interim form. There is a new page. I split it out under nonprofits. Resources for grant evaluations. The grant evaluation form is now online. For most of you, it's the general evaluation report. Those that may have gotten emergency funding during the COVID pandemic, there's a report for that as well. But really quickly, I want to stress what explain what I'm stressing here. So if you can tell, I do run a series of practice things. So if you don't complete emails with the @ symbol, it will warn you. So you have the option on our website when you're working on your evaluations or your applications to save and continue later. So when you click this, you are going to get a little pop-up box where you can enter your email address. And up above it is this link here. Please make sure that you copy this link before you send yourself an email, because if the email is late, if for some reason it gets jammed up and it doesn't get through and you want to finish working on it, you still have this link. You can copy and save it in a Word document. You can bookmark it in your browser, whatever you need to do. But this provides two options: to get the email, which I encourage you to do, but also to go ahead and copy this link right here before you click send link to yourself, just to make sure it doesn't get lost, because sometimes it does. So that's my tip. That's my big tip, because I can't get those links back for you. They're all on a temporary screen and they all disappear as soon as you click submit, and I can't see that. So all right. Let me get back. Okay. So here's some tips. Here's some tips of questions that pop up. I went back through the last few years of follow-up questions that we often ask during the cycle to see if I could come up with some tips. So let's start with budgets. So as I said, for those that are not familiar with it, we have a summary budget form that is one of the items that must be included with your application. So we get tons of them that are very informative, no problems. But then we have two categories. We have one category that literally will have one line and it will say program. And it's the total cost of the program. So that's not really a budget detail, right? So then I have to do follow-ups and say, can you please tell me exactly what's involved in the project and what adds up to this? So we do need you to be somewhat detailed, meaning, is there marketing? Are there staff costs? Are there facility rental costs? Are there food costs? Are there transportation costs, right? But what we don't need is and I got a few of these a couple of times, is the other extreme. And I'm just trying to save you some headache. And I appreciate attention to detail, but we don't need to know the individual costs of pencils or paper or nails. We appreciate that I actually had a shed repair project come through a few years ago, and they actually priced out for us the cost of the nails and the bolts and the hammer. And it was so incredibly detailed. It was very thoughtful, but it went way, you don't need to give yourself that kind of stress. It's all right. So just what are the main expenses? Think about when you're doing your organization budget, you have to hit the main categories of what you're doing. If there's something that doesn't make sense, I will ask a question. But also please don't bundle into like one or two single lines on there that don't really sort of give us an idea of how the budget gets broken out. I will stress this. See, I have little stresses all the way through this. I'm going to stress this. If the community foundation is the only funder on your request, there's nobody else. So your project costs $5,000 and you are asking for $5,000. I can promise you at the bottom, if you do not take advantage of the explanation block to explain why we're the only funder, you will get an email from me that is going to ask that question. If we are the only funder, you're not even putting anything in the pot for it. We want to know why. Okay. Really. So please make sure that you include that explanation. And for those that know what I'm talking about, at the bottom of the budget, summary budget form, there is a space to say that. If there are other fundings, or if there are other funding sources, please include those in the revenue section. I'm going to stress this for new people. We are not asking for the names of your individual private donors. Okay. If you do a fundraising appeal to help support the program, you can just say individual donations, right? And whatever the amount you anticipate. We do expect amounts anticipated. But if you're reaching out to other foundations or corporate funders, like, you know, another community foundation or a private, or meaning a family foundation, please let us know which one. We're always just curious to know who's providing or potentially providing support in our area. For your narrative questions, so for those that are not familiar with using our form, I'm going to stress this, and there are people around the room that will probably, around the Zoom room, that will go like, but not be nodding their heads up and down as I say this. Draft your answers in Word and then copy and paste them into the form. If you write directly into the form and something goes wrong, like your power goes out, right? Your internet goes down and you've completely lost your response. You know, or what we were running into recently with the evaluation form were technical glitches on our website that I couldn't help anybody with, right? Or you forget to copy that link. At least you've kept your responses. You also will need to count characters. The answers, or the narrative boxes on our form, will tell you how many characters. Those are characters with spaces. So it's much easier if you draft in some type of word processing, like Word itself or Max Pages, where you can, it'll count the characters for you. Be clear about what you need and your request for funding, and be specific. Discuss the impact. If you reference the number of people you serve, be specific about the service and the population and how you determine that. I have to stress this. As many of you know, there is not only the possibility of speaking directly to your impact and the number you serve in your narrative, but there's actually a question about the number served, right? This is not the census. This is not the census population for the town or Middlesex County. Please, this is the actual number of people you estimate on an annual basis that you serve, or however, whatever purpose you need to measure it, but it's not the census. I can honestly say, probably, I don't even think I couldn't even say the DMV serves 165,000 people in Middlesex County, because not everybody drives, right? So please don't use the census numbers. And I'm very familiar with the general census numbers for all 15 towns. And so we really are interested about the number of actual people that you track or estimate that you serve. If you are offering a community outreach program, explain how you're going to know, and you'd say, we're going to, notify the community and to register for this. So how are you going to do that? Are you using, email? Are you using constant contact? Are you partnering with other organizations? We know it's very hard these days to reach out to the community and get awareness and encourage people to attend things. So it's in the past, whenever someone has said, oh yeah, we're going to just send out all sorts of announcements and get everybody to register, the question has always come back, well, how are they really going to do that? Acronyms. If you use acronyms, please, the first time you use it, actually give the whole thing about what the acronym means. I can tell you a number of times we get applications through and they're full of acronyms and we have no idea what they mean, right? And along with acronyms, I remind everybody, everybody's gotten really good. I have to tell you, the grants committee for many years now has just raved about how much they appreciate the attention you put into your narratives and how informative it is. And so many members learn about organizations they were never aware of. And it's because I stress to people, write as if you were writing to your next door neighbor, right? We have 8 grants committees that work in this process. 8. They are made up of your next door neighbors. They are people from all over the county that are really interested in supporting the work of the Community Foundation and helping make these really difficult decisions. Having to decide and make recommendations for grants is really hard. And I'm not going to put her on the spot, but I want everybody to give big thumbs up and big shout out whenever you see any of our grants committee members. But where are you, Penny? Penny is actually with us today, and she is one of those great people that sits around the table and reads applications, and she will tell you she gets lots of them to read. And we really appreciate their time, but they're your next door neighbors. So acronyms are great, particularly if it talks about, if you need it for the work, but please don't feel that you need to write, some theoretical PhD dissertation type of language, because these are people that really just want to know what you do and then they have to struggle with those really hard decisions, and they're really interested in what you do. They are really interested in what you do. Impact. On the application, you can choose the towns that you serve, right? Please don't choose all 15 just because you think choosing all 15 looks really good. If you actually serve all 15 towns, then by all means choose them. But if you only choose, if your direct impact is in 2 of them, then just choose those 2. There's no we don't weight how many towns you serve. We're just interested. It's a very quick and easy way for us to be able to see which communities are being served by which applications that come in as we're tracking our own demographics. And then proofread. Proofread. I can't tell you the number of times I'm reading a narrative and I can tell people are copying and pasting, and like 3 different people are working on the application because somebody went to paste something in and they left like this whole other section they meant to delete out there, and it's like has no complete sentences, makes no sense whatsoever. But I will tell you the bigger problem with not proofreading is we don't get a lot of them, but I want to say I think at least 5 come in every cycle where the amount of money that's asked on page 1 does not match the amount of money mentioned in the narrative being requested, does not match the amount of money on the budget summary form being requested. So page 1 may say you need $4,432. The narrative speaks to needing $3,968, and the summary budget form says you're asking for $5,000. So not really sure exactly how much you're asking for. So please just make sure that everything ties together, okay? Because then I have to send lots of emails, and that's that's crazy stuff. You have better things to do all day than answer my crazy little emails. Incomplete applications will not be reviewed. I cannot stress that enough. We get quite a few, and so as they're coming in, we're always processing them and getting them ready to go out to the committees. So for those that have come with us in a journey, and I'm looking for Dick Wheeler's face and Lucy Meigs, because if you guys don't give me a big rah-rah on this, here we go. You started with us when we had 17 copies that had to come in, right? And then we went online, but we still needed 2 hard copies. Guess what, everybody? No copies this year. No hard copies. Thank you. I got my yays.
Bravo.
All right.
Bravissimo.
Here we go. Thank
you.
See, I told you I have a lot of people on the call today that have been through this with us for a long time. So, okay, no hard copies this year. That being said, if for some reason we have a discrepancy or a problem with the electronic submission, then I'll reach out to you, okay? But this year we are going to go completely paperless. And I have, all right, everybody laugh, because you all know what's happening now. I'm completely jinxing myself, right? So there we go. Murphy's Law, it's going to happen to me. So if you hear from me and I do need a hard copy, please don't panic. It just means something went a little cuckoo. When you click submit, as many of you know, but there are new people, so I want to stress this. When you click submit for your application, it comes into us. And you will get a copy of the exact same email, and it will have all of your documents on it, and will be the whole application that you've completed, right? What we have noticed in the past is sometimes various servers processing those that go through, because they have almost a spam appearance, right, as they're coming through, because they're general off of our website, that we tend to 9 out of 10 times get them immediately, but for some reason yours may not arrive for a day, 2 days. I've even had it go up to 3 or 4 business days. So please do not panic. I will say that if by about the 3rd or 4th day you have not received it, by all means, feel free to reach out and let me know, because one, it'll make sure that it comes in. See, that's where the hard copies always came, everybody. It's what I knew was coming through. But I can forward you our copy, or I can check on the website just to make sure, in case we didn't get it either. And then, of course, as I said, we may have follow-up questions. Very rarely anymore. Applications are so well conceived and so well presented. We don't often have a ton of follow-up questions, but if we do, they will come to you by email, and your prompt response is appreciated. All right, evaluations, past grants. We know many grants from the 2019 cycle were tabled during 2020 due to the pandemic. We've heard from a number of you. Thank you for keeping us updated throughout the whole pandemic. We really appreciate it. That some of them were able to restart this year. I know Carrie is here with us from Connecticut Humane Society, and I'm not picking on you, Carrie, you're just my example. They were able to relaunch a grant they had to table. So that was great. So they've been finishing up a lot of their paperwork as they come forward. Some of them, I just heard from someone else who's not here today, that they're actually still tabled because of the type of program that they offer. They're still carrying it forward. If your application, or if your grants from 2019, 2020, couple of them might even be a little older, are finally complete, money has been fully expended, right? Doesn't mean the program, maybe it's ongoing, it keeps going, but the grant funding is fully expended. We do need your final evaluation submitted by September 15th. And as I showed you on our website, we now have online evaluation forms. I will say, if you have any problems with those forms, please let me know. The WordPress application we use for those just went through a major update, and something went a little wonky when they did it. I think they've sorted it out, but if you have any problems with the evaluation form or the application form, please let me know immediately, because you're probably not the only one. If you need an interim, if you are not finished, or you will not be finished with a previous grant by September 15th, I do have an interim report that you can file. That's in a Word document. It helps me track who needs it. So if you just send me an email, I'll send that to you. So here's the other thing I really, really need. And I'm making a huge call to all of our current grantees, and meaning anyone who has a grant from the 2019 cycle, the 2020 cycle, the more recent Guilford Savings Bank pilot cycle, the emergency fund cycle. I'm working on our annual report to the committee, okay? I really need photos. COVID really chopped into my photo bank, because obviously so we all went on pause, right? And I'm going to say this, like, I'm going to whisper it. Hey, Dick, hint, 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 right? Circus just happened. Love my circus photos. Lucy, I know you've got everyone outside. You've got tons of stuff. So please, I'm begging you, if you have photos, I'm in desperate need of photos. Because really last year, because no one could do their programs, I was using up a lot of what I had. And quotes are great. Little short stories. If, I can't necessarily put a whole one in, but we can put them online. We love to show off what you do. Our donors love to see what you're doing. Our grants committee loves to see what you're doing. So please, and if they're photos, I really do. If I could get them by the 18th of August, I'm really frantically trying to get this ready to go to print and go electronic. So I appreciate that. All right, questions. All right, Liz, I see you. Go ahead.
Okay. unmute. A couple of questions, so I'll ask them all three, and then, is there a preferred percentage of funding from organizations? So if let's say we're asking for $100, then 20% from Middlesex Foundation, 80%. Is there some kind of formula?
Okay.
That's number one. And then the other one is there a supplemental way to submit programmatic materials or publications that show as a way for us to show the types of programs that we do in our capacity?
Okay, so first question, no, there's no formula. We leave that up to each organization based on how your fundraising goes, where your funding comes from, what your needs are, and what how you allocate and determine that. So I don't have a formula to give you that says, oh, particularly because some programs or some organizations may have $300,000 budgets and our maximum grant award is 5,000. So, and I always remind people that, of course, everyone's welcome to ask for the maximum grant amount. There are no guarantees that if we do award a grant, that there's maximum grant award, because obviously the more $5,000 grants we give out, the fewer grants we give each cycle, because that eats into the pot very quickly. So what I do ask is for people to just really think about what your needs are. And if we may be considering a partial grant, if it sounds like we might be able to do that, I will. And if it sounds like your program really is either fully fund or we just aren't going to do it because we won't have the other funding, then that's always good for me to know on the aside, because that helps me inform the grants committee. And that sometimes happens. As far as extra materials beyond what we ask for in the upload at this time, no. And we do that intentionally so that all applications are equal. That being said, the narrative section on the application is something like, Lynn, do you remember? I think I have it about 7,500 characters now. I haven't looked at it this time. I have to make a few tweaks to it, but I'm thinking it's around.
Yeah, you definitely increased it from the previous year.
Yeah, somewhere between 5,000 and 7,500, which is a
manageable.
lot.
It's
a lot. So, and what I would recommend is, you can include in there some of the overall programs that you do. You do not necessarily want to give us like the full, unless maybe if you do just 3, that's great. But if you do 30, don't give us a list of 30. There are better things for you to use your narrative on to talk about what you do.
Is it possible to include, I'm talking about we have physical publications or a link to such things so that they can see the kinds of ways we do advertise and market to the community?
So I appreciate that. You can definitely speak to marketing and advertising. I can't swear this year that you're going to be able to embed external links in the narrative, because that's one of the glitchy pieces we've been having problems with when they updated the platform that we use for our forms, where we build our forms. And I'm still rebuilding, so I haven't had a chance to test it to make sure I can get it all done. I do ask people to keep in mind that our grants committees are often reading upwards of 80, 90 applications, right? So what we ask is that if there's a simple way to say that you are happy to share the information and market it out without inundating them with lots of links that they obviously out of curiosity are going to want to follow, that's what we ask, is just be cognizant, but be informative. Obviously speak to it. I mean, we definitely want to know that you're informing the community, which is fabulous, but you don't necessarily have to show all of it. So I hope that answers that question. Yeah. All right. Who else? Any other questions? No. All right. Wonderful. Well, Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. If you do have anything specific, as many of you know, please feel free to send an email. We recognize there are always sort of questions that pop up. So you're going to get off this and then you're going to think about it. And then it's probably maybe the end of the week. I'll send out the recording with the PowerPoint slides, and you come up with something else. So send me an email and I'm happy to answer questions when I can, and keep your fingers crossed that the 17th smiles on me technologically. I really need good thoughts.
Thank you very much.
Very welcome. Thank you all for joining me. I appreciate it. Good to see you.
Thanks there. Be well.
You too.